For the next several slides, we will be going over the new rules and waivers that have come out due to the COVID crisis, which now allows you to do telehealth to the entire US population, whether it be rural, urban, or metro, for both new and established patients, and using several telehealth methodologies. We will be going over several of them in the next several slides. There's also been a HIPAA waiver released, which now allows any non-public facing audio-video technologies, basically any one-on-one technology which involves direct messaging and direct video, and not things like Facebook Live, YouTube, radio, or TV, which are public facing. So again, to reiterate, the HIPAA waiver is only for certain one-on-one technologies, not for the public facing technologies, and there is no waiver for protecting health information. We're still responsible for that. The first and the most preferred telehealth methodology is an interactive video and audio, which is also called Medicare telehealth. This could be initiated by the provider. It is covered by the emergency waiver, and there is a Medicare reimbursement for it. The example tools that you could use for the interactive video audio telehealth sessions are Zoom video, like the one that you guys are on right now, FaceTime video, which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, WhatsApp video, similar to FaceTime video, or Skype, Doxy, and a whole lot of others that are out there in the market. There are 10 different CPT codes that you could use. These are very common office visit codes for new patients and established patients. The only difference is that the place of service you need to use for a telehealth visit is 02. So please make your billers aware that they need to use a different place of service for these telehealth interactive video and audio sessions. Again, the place of service is 02. These CPT codes are acceptable for MRA, but we have not yet received clarification from CMS whether this place of service 02 is acceptable or not. Remember not to use the place of service 11, which is the normally used office place of service. Instead, use 02. And as soon as we receive clarification from CMS on whether it's acceptable for risk adjustment or not, we will pass that information along. The next type is telephonic, which is audio only. These could also be initiated by providers, but are not covered by the emergency waiver, nor is there any Medicare reimbursement. These include telephone conversations, FaceTime audio or WhatsApp audio, or any audio only conversations. There are 3 different CPT codes depending on the time spent with the patient, and the same place of service 02 to be used for these as well. At this time, we do not expect these CPT codes to be acceptable for Medicare risk adjustment because these are not interactive. The third type is called a virtual check-in, which has 2 CPT codes. One is a 5 to 10 minute established patient E&M virtual check-in, or a GZ2012, where a patient sends you a video or a picture and you remotely evaluate and then provide treatment options to the patient. Place of service remains as 02, and just like the office visit codes, these CPT codes are acceptable for MRA, but we are still not sure if this place of service is acceptable or not. The last method is called a Medicare e-visit. These should be patient initiated, like telephonic visits. There are 3 different CPT codes, and this communication is via patient portal, not audio, not video, but just via patient portal. If in a cumulative 7 days, you spend 5 to 10 minutes with the patient, you would use 99421 and so on. These CPT codes, like the telephonic visit, because these are not interactive, we do not expect will be acceptable for Medicare risk adjustment. These are the general documentation requirements for any of the 4 types of telehealth visits that we just went through. You must first schedule it in your practice management system as a telehealth visit. You should use your regular progress note format, not a telephone encounter format. If you're using patient-reported vitals, make sure that you are notating clearly that these are patient-reported BPs, heights and weights, and so on. Make sure that you include chief complaint, history of present illness, review of systems, assessment, and plan. And in the physical exam section, make sure that you write telehealth or telephonic visit, as the case may be. Also, please delete or make blank any section or subsection that are not pertinent to this visit, or you're not doing it during this visit. For example, if you're not doing physical exam, make sure that you delete or make that section blank. We do not want your note showing that you checked someone's eye when you're on a telephone with them. The CMS E&M guidelines from 1997 still hold good for all these visits. If you need a copy of it, the link is provided on the slide. If you are reviewing a video or a photo sent by the patient, make sure you notate that in the physical exam section. In addition to all this, make sure that you include the time spent, the extent of the history of present illness and the review of systems, and the complexity of your medical decision making. Like we went over before, you build this with a place of service 02. And like in your regular office visits, make sure that for every ICD-10 code, you have supporting documentation in terms of MEAT, which is monitoring, evaluating, assessing, and treating. We recommend that you send your first few telehealth notes to your provider educator or quality analyst so they may review it and give you immediate feedback before you conduct more telehealth visits. Here are the other must-have items in order for the documentation to qualify as a good telehealth visit. As usual, patient's name, date of birth, and date of service must be on every single page. In addition, you need to have a verbal consent notated on your progress note that you have obtained consent for the telehealth visit from the patient. As usual, your name, your credentials, your signature, your logged or completed status, or mandatory. Like we mentioned in the previous slide, for telehealth, make sure that you include the location of the patient and you, the mode of telehealth, whether it is FaceTime, audio or video, WhatsApp, audio or video, Doxy, audio or video, and so on, very clearly on the progress note. Also mention the total duration of the call and the amount of time that the provider spent on the call. Here's a checklist that was emailed to you earlier. It is a one-page checklist with the second page being a workflow. The checklist contains all the necessary items that will help you conduct a good telehealth visit. Please make sure that every single component on this checklist is included in your progress note. There is no need to fill out this form. You can just use it as a checklist to fill out your progress note. The CPT codes are given in the bottom part of the checklist, and also these documentation and CPT coding guidelines that we just went through. Here's a workflow that I was talking to you about, which helps you pick the right CPT code for the right kind of service that you're providing. This was also included in the packet that was sent to you, and I believe it will be sent to you again after this meeting. While you're preparing to write down your questions on the Zoom chat, and while Ashley is preparing to consolidate all those to answer in this live session, here are some FAQs that we have collected from different parties and put the answers together. If you're a capitated provider with certain health plans, all these CPT codes are already included in your capitation. But if you're fee for service, the below will be reimbursed. And in the next slide, I will be showing you what Medicare reimbursement rates are. Telephonic visits are not Medicare reimbursable, even for fee for service. All the others are reimbursable. You may ask, why should I do this if these are not reimbursed? because your patients need you at this time of crisis. And we want to make sure that you document and you get credit for going above and beyond and doing a telephonic visit, even though it's not reimbursed. You do not need a vendor. You can use commonly available technologies like the ones that I mentioned earlier. You do not need a HIPAA agreement, but if you're using a paid product, make sure that you get a BAA or Business Associates Agreement signed with that vendor. Some people have told us that they've entered or tried to enter referrals into different health plan portals, but the Place of Service 02 is not available. While we await clarification from health plans, our suggestion is that you continue using the Place of Service 11 for office visits, and then when we get more clarity from the health plans, we will provide that to you. Here are the different CPT codes and the current Florida Medicare fee schedule for each one of them. If you need them, the link is right down there. We've been asked by some of the providers that they're spending a lot of time educating patients on how to use the apps or the video technology. Unfortunately, I wish there was a CPT code and reimbursement for it, but at this time, there is none. Perhaps there will be in future. Here are some FAQs in regards to the quality programs. I'll leave the slide here for a couple of seconds for you to read through it, and the slide will also be shared with you. The main point is you should try and continue to use the 5-star checklist as an agenda builder and a heads-up document for your visits. There is no likely changes in the payment timelines for the quality program. There may be a reduction in the target. Right now, it is 50% by end of Q1, but depending on whether CMS accepts telehealth or not, we are likely to reduce the targets, and we will be communicating that to you as soon as we are made aware of those decisions. Remember, only interactive visits may count for the quality program. Just audio only or patient portal visits will not count for the quality programs, even after CMS clarifies whether telehealth is acceptable or not. Here are some FAQs for those of you wondering about HEDIS. You can still do some measures telephonically or using telehealth. Those are care for older adults and medication reconciliation post-discharge. Please make sure you document and bill for them appropriately. You can also continue doing prescriptions, not only for the medication adherence, SUPD, SPC, and other measures, but for any medication, you can continue doing prescriptions through telehealth visits. Please make sure that you're considering 90-day supply into the 30-day or any other shorter supplies, and you consider encouraging your patients to go mail order so they do not have to leave their homes to receive the chronic medications. We do expect the thresholds and due dates to be changed by CMS and NCQA. We will communicate that to you as soon as we get those information from CMS or NCQA. But in the interim, continue providing the best possible services. Remembering that some of these preventive measures like mammograms and colonoscopies, because they are not considered essential and they may be considered elective, may not be available for your patients at this time. Now, I call upon Dr. Eric Haas, our Chief Medical Officer, to go over certain patient scenarios and agendas for those scenarios.